This is Gemara in Shekalim, Daf Beis, as we begin Mesechtas Shekalim. All the learning for this month, the month of Nisan, has been generously sponsored by the Grun family, the Nishmas, Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi, the Neshama Shav and Aliyah, and as we forge into Shekalim, the learning of the Torah Chabura, Shvi Eschosi, the Nishmasai, of course, all the Chayla man, Vevega Chaim Yisar, Shalom Sima, Reizes, Hor, Brasanendel, Itapasim, Vaschai Sayu, Solom, Mimindol, Eliezer, Paraz, Michalea, Shalom, Naomi, Vashav, Vigar, Shirchan, Valdav, Nitarivich, Mobantila, the Niman, Khan, Riz, Chai, Vasmina, Liva, Rachavas, Tavia, Musa, Dina, Ida, Ben Shana, Mindol, Bashina Mindol, Sevchotevi, Min, Avigail, Fleshas, Ben Fagid, Verb, Michel, Tzvena, Tele, Vuva, Menachem Mendel, Ben Toba, Visoy Shachali Israel, as well as the Schoshidach for Atalea Basita, Menachem Mendel, Ben Eli Sheva. Everything. So with that, let's begin the Mishnah. Be'echad be'adar, on the first day of Adar, Mashmiyan ala Shekalim. They would announce about the Shekalim, the collection of the Machzis HaShekel. What else would they announce about? Valik Kalayim. They would announce about Kalayim, that you have to rid your fields from any forbidden mixtures. B'chamisha asar boyin, on the 15th of Adar, Karines Megillah. First of all, you read the Megillah. Where? Bekrachim, in the walled cities, like Yerushalayim, that we were zeicha to do on the 15th. Well, actually, this year was a bit different. But either way, on the 15th, you read the Megillah. And they fix the roads, v'sarchavos, and the thoroughfares, v'samikvais, and the mikvahs, amayim of water. Voicing called Tzarchei Rabim, and they would do all the public needs, which we'll see at the end of today what exactly that entails. But on the 15th of Adar, they read the Megillah and they did all the public needs. And what else would they do? Mitzayin, and they would mark as a kavarais, where the kavarais are with a line. They would mark to know that where this is a grave, so that you wouldn't become tamei. V'yotzin afal klayim, and they would go out to rid the fields of klayim. On Rosh Chodesh Adar, they would announce to get rid of klayim. On the 15th, they would go out and make sure that everyone heeded it to their words. Why this end of the Mishnah is being brought here, we'll see at the end of today that this also has to do with the Shekalim, which we'll get to in a moment. Says the Gemara, V'lama be'echad ba'adar, what's the reason that on the first of Adar, they're announcing about the Shekalim? Explains the Gemara, Kedei she'yaviu es Yisrael she'kleim b'yinaisan, so that Klal Yisrael could bring the Machzis HaShekel in its appropriate time, V'titreim Trumas Alishcha, and they could give and set the Trumas Alishcha, which was the Beis Hamikdash, which was the place that they kept the donations, Mina Chadasha Bizmana, for the new Karbanais in its proper time, which was when? Be'echad b'Nisan, on the first of Nisan. What fabulous, again, the Siyat Shmaya is wonderful that, we're within Nisan, within the week of Nisan, and this is what used to be. This year it wasn't, because there was no Beis Hamikdash. But either way, they would announce on the first of Adar, we're going to collect the Shekalim, and then on the first of Nisan, they collected the Shekalim in order to refill the coffers, refill all the collection boxes in the Beis Hamikdash to collect the necessary funds for the karbanos, etc., for the coming year. Says the Gemara, Umar Rabbi Yishmael, Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, Trumas Halishka, Kitchi Lasai. And Rabbi Yishmael Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, the taking the new Shekalim from the Trumas Halishka occurred on the first of Nisan, Kitchi Lasai, like it originally did in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. T'chsev, as the Torah teaches us, Vahi b'chodesh harishon, it was in the first month, b'shana hashinis, in the second year, be'echad la'chodesh, on the first of the month, hukam a Mishkan, they set up the Mishkan, and that was when Vitani Alan, we learned on it, B'yoim Shahukam Mishkan, by B'yoim Nitrat Truma. On that day was when they took the Truma, they took the separations, they took the donations. So just like in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, it was on that first of the month, the first of Nisan, which is the first of the months, like we've spoken about. So too, we nowadays collect on the first of Nisan the donations. Also to point out, you see like over here, there was like a little dot over here, which seemed to be a bit random. Don't necessarily trust the dots of the Gemara, because as you saw over here, it was smack in the middle of the flow of things. So try to ignore the unnecessary dots. Of course, this all depends upon the different girsayis and the different ways of learning, etc. But again, that is din number one. Din number one, we learned to the Mishnah that we announced on the first of Adar we're going to collect the Machzis HaShekel. And when did they collect it? On the first of Nisan. Why? Kitzchi Lasei, just like by the man of Moshe Rabbeinu, they collected on the first of the month of Nisan. So too, we do that the entire time of the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara, Reb Tavi, Reb Yeshua, B'Shem Reb Kahana. Reb Tavi and Reb Yeshua said in the name of Reb Kahana. Nemer Khan, it says over here, Chodshei. It says over here, the months of the year. We only count from Nisan. So too, this is a second makar, a second source to teach us that in Nisan, the first of Nisan was when they would collect the funds. The first makar was Vayiba Chodesh Harishon. The second makar, so the word Chodshei, which we learn out, means Nisan. That's what we know that we collected on Nisan. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Amar Rav Yoina, Shavik Rav Tevi, Rosh Demas Nisa. Rav Tevi, you just told me that we learned it from Chodshei, but you forgot the beginning of the Mishnah. Va'amar Saifa, and he only taught us the end of the Mishnah. Dalkan. Well, actually, again, Dal, the gears over here, they changed to Deloy. Deloy Kain Kahada Titani. Is it not like we learned in the Brisa that what? It says that this should be the Oila of the Chodesh in its proper time. You would think that you separate and you have to give a truma, you have to give a separation for the karbanos each and every month. Only on 1 month. In all the months of the year. So when is that month? Years, you would think, choose 1 month. And in that month, collect all the donations for the Beis HaMikdash. So on that, we answer Nemar. We count from Nisan. So therefore, says the Gemara, that is how we see that you count from, not that you count, that you collect on Nisan. This is the second makar, and again, we're just taking issue that you only quoted the Seifa, and the Seifa by itself, you don't necessarily understand this thing. Only after you quote the first part of the Mishnah that taught us that that's when we see what is going on, and then we see that the word Chodshei refers to Nisan. So far, we have 2 different makayres, says the Gemara, teaching us that they would collect the machzah shekel, they would collect the donations that each and every Jew in Klal Yisrael had to give the half shekel. Why? In order to buy the karbanos for the entire year, the karbanos sibur. When would they do that? They would do it on the 1st of Nisan, and therefore they would announce a month prior on the 1st of Adar. Says the Gemara. Mahu mashmi'in. What does it mean, mashmi'in? What's mashmi'in? The second word of the Mishnah. Mashmi'in. Then the 1st of Adar, they were mashmi'in. They would proclaim. What does it mean, mashmi'im? So says the Gemara, Rav Kuna Amar, like we said, machrizin. They would announce. Says the Gemara, let's explain what this means. Heichma de'at Hechmat Omar, or the other gears they changed on the side is Kimod Tema, like it says. This is going to be a raya proof that the word Mashmi'in means Machrizin. Vayinu Kol B'Yehuda Ubi Yerushalayim, and the sound and the proclamation went out throughout Yehuda and Yerushalayim to do what? To bring all the different taxes to Moshe Rabbeinu. So says the Gemara, we see that similarly by us that they went out and they would announce that now is the time to bring the machzah shekel for the donations in the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, Tama Taninan. Again, these are part of the words. These are funny words. Taman Taninan, which means we learned in the Mishnah. Again, this is Yerushalmi. The wording is always a little bit different. Says the Gemara, Taman Taninon Ein Bein Adar Rishon. This is going to now elaborate a bit on when we're going to announce about the Shekalim, about Kalayim, like we learned in the Mishnah. Ein Bein Adar Rishon Adar Sheni Ela Mikra Megillah. There's only one difference between the first and second Adar is Mikra Megillah Matanas Daf Yomi, meaning those are the 2 items that have to be done only in the second Adar. Rav Simoim b'Shem Rav Shua and Levi Av Shimua Shekalim. So too about the Shekalim Ukalayim Beinayim. That's also a difference that's only announced on the second Adar. Rav Chalboi Rav Huna Rav b'Shem Rav Chia Rabba Hakol Yotzim b'Yudalid. So they explained that everyone is allowed to read the Megillah on the 14th. Shahuzman Kriyasa, which is the time they read the Megillah. Amar Rav Yosi v'Yos, and you're absolutely correct. Klom Amru Mashmin al Shekalim Loikadei Shavi Yisrael Shekalim by Naisam. What's the whole reason why we're announcing about the Shekalim? So that you can bring it at the right time. Im at Amar Badar Harishain. If you announce it that they should do it on the first Adar. Ad Kedoin is Beshita Shitin Yaimin. What? You need 60 days? The first Adar to the first Nisan, to the first of Nisan is 60 days. What do you need 60 days for? Therefore, it must be the second Adar. What's the whole reason that they're going and announcing about Kalayim? They announce and then they go out and check on the Kalayim we send the 15th. Was why? So that they could see the sprouts growing and be able to tell if someone would transgress Kalayim. So Im Amar at Ba'adar Rishon, if you're going to tell me they announced it on the first Adar all the way back, Akadoin Ein Dekikin, what's going to go on? The plants are going to be so small, they're not going to be able to tell. It must be clear raya that it refers to the second Adar, not only for Mikra Megillah Matanas Lav Yainim, but as well for announcing about the Shekalim and Kalayim was also done in the second Adar. Says the Gemara, Rav Chizkiya Shal. Asked Rav Chizkiya, so we just brought a beautiful raya that when our Mishnah taught us that we announced B'echad Ba'adar, we announced about the Shekalim, that we're announcing about the Kalayim, we just brought a raya that refers to the second Adar. Says the Gemara, which by the way, coming up is 2 Adars. Coming up a year from now. Rav Chizkiya Shal. Rav Chizkiya asked, Me'at b'nei Bavel mashmina al Shekalim reish shal chayrif? If what you're saying is correct, that the whole reason we're announcing about the Shekalim is so that when the first of Nisan comes, everyone's able to get to the Beis HaMikdash and bring the Shekalim. So in Bavel, they're far from the Beis HaMikdash. They should announce not on the first of Adar, but rather at the beginning of the winter, to give everyone enough time to get their Shekalim and get to the Beis HaMikdash. Like a day, Sheyeviu Yisrael Shekleim by Nisan, so that Klal Yisrael able to bring the Shekam in the right time. Ititim Chumas Alishkam and Achadash Bismana Be'achav Nisan. So said Rav Chizkiya, if the whole reason you're doing is to get there the first of Nisan, in Babel they should announce it many months prior. And to this, the Gemara argues, Heisev Ravula Kumi Ramana Ravula. Got up in the presence of Ramana, which also you're going to quickly realize the names in Yerushalmi are different also. Ramana Vahataninan, and he said, what do you mean? We learned in the Mishnah. 3 times in the year, they take the money out of the Beis HaMikdash funds. B'Praisa Pesach, 15 days into Pesach. 15 days before Pesach, I should say, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but B'Praisa Atzeres, 15 days before Shavuos, B'Praisa Chag, and 15 days before Sukkis. Amar Lei, and Ula continued, and he said, Neymar, again, the word, we get rid of the word Loi, Ye Amar, Elain, Dekrivin, B'Praisa Pesach. Those that are close to Eretz Yisrael, they could bring it 15 days before Pesach. Meaning, he's explaining what does it mean that Shloisha Parakim Bashana they take the funds. He's explaining it doesn't mean that's when they remove it. It means that's when they bring it. He's explaining that there's 3 different times of the year that different people would bring their funds. That when it comes to those who are close to the Beis HaMikdash, they do it 15 days before Pesach, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Ilan Derechik, and those who are further away, but B'Praisa Atzeres, 15 days for Shavuos. Those are either further, they have to do it even at the beginning of Sukkot. So says the Gemara, you wanted to tell me that those who are far away in Bavel, they should start even beforehand. It sounds like that's accurate. It sounds like they should start. The opposite. That they don't have to announce at the beginning of the winter because it sounds like they had a different collection date. It sounds like the collection date had to do with how far they were from the Beis HaMikdash. So on this, says the Gemara, no, Rav Chizkiya is correct. Amar lei, kula ka'achas hiba. What are you talking about? All the Chamachs shekel came all at the same time. Kula ka'achasiba, not like you just thought. You just thought that everyone brought it different times. Incorrect. They all bring it at the same time. Lama amru b'shleisha prakim telasais pumbi. So that they could publicize the matter 3 different times throughout the year. So that lasais pumbi ladavar, to publicize, everyone will remember to bring their machzah shekel. So it comes out that in Bavel, indeed, they would announce many months prior. So when our Mishnah said they announced Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that's in Yerushalayim. Rosh Chodesh Adar, is in Yerushalayim. But in Bavel, they would have to announce many months prior, so that it could be that they come out, that they're going to be able to bring it on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rav Yehuda Bar Pazi b'shem Rabbi Hein Nikres V'loi Nivas. New Gemara. Says Rabbi Yehuda Bar Pazi, hey Nikris, can you read these psukim v'loy nivas and not be afraid? L'taiva. It says in the Torah that when Klal Yisrael wanted to bring the donations, l'taiva, when they brought for the good, for the Beis Hamikdash, for the Mishkan, it says kol netiv leif. Anyone who had a generous heart brought. But lira, by the eagle, what does it say? Vayisbarku kolam v'goymer. Such a frightening pasuk that when it comes to doing something wrong, when it came to Avira, every single person participated. When it came to doing the mitzvah, only the good people did. And furthermore, l'taiva, when it came to doing something good, Moshe had to go out and get to the people when it came to collecting. But l'ra, when it came to collecting for a bad purpose, they all came running towards Aaron HaKoyin. L'taiva, the third braya, when it came to something good, as Yashir Moshe b'nei Yisrael, who sang Shira, Moshe and Klal Yisrael, l'ra, v'atisa kol ha'ida, every single member of Klal Yisrael raised up their eyes on that night when they wept, and therefore we see that there are three different frightening psukim that we see that when it came for evil, when it came for bad, there were unfortunately many more people that were quickly involved. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, he says in the Torah, it says in Nevi'im, and I'm going to get up early, and all their maisim and all their deeds are going to be corrupt. And all the bad things that they did, they used to do it early in the morning. I mean, not only did they do an Aveira, they would get up early to do it. Again, we see, unfortunately, that the power of evil is so strong, it's forced them even to have zrizos for an Aveira, unfortunately. Amar Rav Abba bar Acha, says Rav Abba bar Acha, Ein at yachal lamud alofia shaluma zu. You cannot stand and you cannot comprehend the opposite, that Klal Yisrael are a stira, meaning you just claimed that when it came to bad, we run. When it came to good, not necessarily. Rav Abba bar Acha says it's not true. Klal Yisrael are inherently contradictions. Zu nitzban le'egal v'naistin, nitzban le'mishkan v'naistin. The same people, said the Rav Abba. They want to make an Avodah Zarah, they're running. They want to make a Mishkan, they're running. So we learned that it's the same people, unfortunately, running for the same both good and for bad. But on that says Rav Yisi bar Chanina, it's not true. Tana, we learned in the Mishnah, Rav Yisi bar Chanina, Hadam Asnita, we learned in a brayso of Asizi Kapayres Tar, and you should make a lid, a Kapayres for the Arain of pure gold, Yavli Zav Shal Kapayres, Yichaber Al Zav Shal Egel. It's a Kapara. We see it wasn't the same people doing good and bad, but rather it was a Kapara for the bad that they did to make the Beis HaMikdash. On this, the Gemara continues, and the Gemara now is going to go back into the Machzah Shekel. Rav Chagai b'shem Rav Shimon bar Nachman sholosh trumais nemar b'parsha zois. Three different trumais, three different separations. It says in this parsha: trumas adanim, the sakis; trumas shkalim, the shkalim; trumas mishkan for the Mishkan itself. Da b'rabanei zavi chuli truma zu trumas adanim, the sakis. Meis kol esheit venu liboy tichu es trumasi zu trumas shkalim. V'zois that trumas tichu mitam zu trumas Mishkan. Says the Gemara, trumas Mishkan leMishkan, the Truma, the separation that they gave for the Mishkan, Mashayir, so that which they wanted, that which was needed, Yasu, or Yeviu, they're going to bring. Truma Shkalim, the Karban, the Truma Shkalim are for the Karbanas, like we mentioned, Mashayir Zayasu, Kadeshe Yad, Lekulam Shabbos, everyone had an equal participation in the Karbanas of the Tzibur. Truma Adanim, Adanim, Ha'eshir Layarbev, Adal Yamed, that everyone brought the same amount. Amar Rav Avloin, says Rav Avloin, Af Parsha Zoi, so too. And this Parsha Nemaba Gimel Truma is similar to the three separations that we just said. There's three mentions of the word Truma in the Torah, Machs Shekel Truma Lashem, number 1, Yitin Truma Hashem, number 2, and Lasis Truma Hashem, number 3. Now we go back into the Mishnah. What do we say in the Mishnah? We said on the 15th of the month, B'taz Vav Ba'i Kayrinis HaMegillah B'Krachim, they would read the Megillah in the Krachim, in the walled cities, like we pointed out, in Yerushalayim. Loi Kain Amar Rav Chelbai Rav Huna B'Shem Rav Huna Rav B'Shem Rav Chia Rabba Hakol Yaitzim B'Yadalet Shuzman Kriyasa. Says the Gemara, Rav Chelbai, Rav Huna, and Rav, that it's not true, but rather everyone is allowed to read the Megillah on the 15th. We in the Mishnah just pointed out that in the wall cities on the 14th. He said no, everyone's allowed to read it on the 14th, Shuzman Kriyasa, which is the time of reading for everyone, that even those who live in the walled cities, even those who live in Yerushalayim, is allowed to read it on the 14th. Not like we learned in the Mishnah. The Gemara says, no, the Mishnah was just teaching us that which you do on the second Adar, you don't do on the first Adar. But it's true, if you did on the 14th, you would be Yaitse. Rav Yaisi, Rav Yaisa. Rav Yisa, Rav Acha, Havin Yasin. They were sitting. Amar Rav Yisa, Rav Acha. Rav Yisa said to Rav Acha, Loi mistavra el l'shavar. It's only if you already missed it. If the 14th came, then the 15th passed, then we say that you read on the 14th, you're Yaitse. Aval lavai lai. But in the future, absolutely not. That if you did not pass the 15th yet, Loi mistavra l'shavar is the other girsa. That basically if the 15th didn't pass, of course we're going to tell you to read on the 15th. When do we say you could be Yaitse reading the 14th? If you already did it. But if you didn't pass the 15th, of course you should read it in the 15th. Asks the Gemara, Vatani, but we learned you can read it both days. So why are you telling me that's not true? I agree with you. I held the same thing. And it's accurate. If you read on the 14th, you should go back and you should read it again on the 15th. Shaimin Lai, not Shema'in, they take out those words, but rather Shaimin Lai, we would listen to him if that's what he would do. He says it can't be. Because if you were going to let them to read only the 14th, we're going to lose the whole din of the krachim. The whole din of the krachim, they read on the 15th. So it must not be accurate, but rather it must be you have to read on the 15th. Unless you already missed it, then you could leave it. Tani, Rav Shimon Gamliel Leimer. With this, we're going to conclude. Mitzvahs and ayagos b'adar sheni and ayagos b'rishon. Chotz aside for what? Be'esiv the tiny shein shavim zebezeh that they are noig for both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Rebbe Ba Rav Yirmiyah b'shem Rav Simon b'shem Shimon Levi Alacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that we're noig haspeidim and tainesim that we do not do neither on the first nor on the second Adar. Rav Huna Rav Tzibayir Amar Hinig Rav Chanina b'Tzibayir in Kada. That's what he did. He was noyeg, like we just said, not to do a speidim and tainis in the first Adar. The Rav Shimon Gamliel Loy Amar El Hinig Hal Alacha Loy. It wasn't actually La Alacha. And over here, the Taklin Chadatin, which often takes the place of the basic Pshan and Rashi, he over here points out that what does this mean? That it wasn't the halacha, it was just the minhag. It means you don't teach it in public, but rather this is just what everyone did. But if someone were to come to ask you, you'd be allowed to answer like that. That is Gemara Shekalim Daf Beis. Hopefully, Mir Tashem, we should be able to learn the entire Shekalim together.